Vanachari Namunatiya Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Gunjaviyari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayora Haribo, 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 Nitayora Haribo. Jaya, Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya, Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Shri Gunadai Mahaprasad Ki, Shri Tulsinath Maharaj Ki, Shri Giridhar Lal Ki, Shri Narsingh Bhagavan Ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. We'll read Srila Prabhupada, the last instruction. Perennially, we read the last instruction. Srila Prabhupada would sit facing Krishna and Balaram. Srila Prabhupada would sit facing Krishna and Balaram, and the devotees would sit around him and begin a kirtan. As the kirtan began, two Gurukul boys would rise and come in front of him, where they would begin dancing with arms upraised, their cotton chadars swinging back and forth. Prabhupada would usually not speak or even smile, but after a few minutes he would give his garlands to a devotee, who would place them round the necks of the dancers. Soon two other young boys would come forward, and the first boys would garland them with the garlands they had received from Srila Prabhupada, and sit down. For half an hour the dancing and singing continued. Guests at the temple would gather, many of them offering money at Prabhupada's feet, which rested on an embroidered silk cushion. Srila Prabhupada was gaining resolve to go to the West. If I can work a little more, he said, our society will be very strong. I want to see that what I have done is made still stronger. Prabhupada's talk of travel, however, coincided with increasing weakness. He talked less. When Tamal Krishna tried to encourage him to translate, he replied, when I get inspiration, I will take it up. Don't try to force me. I am going through a difficult time, and I'm feeling restless. It is not mechanical. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Continue reading from Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 3, Text 13. Vasanam Tujagavam Vasanam Tujagavam Paramishcham Jagatpati Parameshcham Tagatpate Bhavaya Shriyase Bhutyaye Bhavaya Shriyase Bhutyaye Shemaya Vijayaya Cha Shemaya Vijayaya Cha Tavasanam Dvijagavam Parameshcham Jagatpati Bhavaya Shriyase Bhutyaye Shemaya Vijayaya Cha Tavasanam Dvijagavam Parameshcham Jagatpati Bhavaya Shriyase Bhutyaye Shemaya Vijayaya Cha Tavasanam Dvijagavam Jagatpati Bhavaya Shriyase Bhutyaye Shemaya Vijayaya Cha Rameshcham Jagatpati Tava your asanam position on the throne Dvija of the Brahminical culture or the Brahmanas Gavam of the cows Parameshcham supreme Jagatpati O master of the whole universe Bhavaya for improvement Shreyase for the ultimate happiness Bhutjai for increasing the opulence Kshemaya for the maintenance and good fortune Vijayaya for the victory and increasing prestige Cha and translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. O Lord Brahma, your position within this universe is certainly most auspicious for everyone, especially the cows and brahmanas. Brahminical culture and the protection of cows can be increasingly glorified, and thus all kinds of material happiness, opulence, and good fortune will automatically increase. But unfortunately, if Hiranyakashipu occupies your seat, everything will be lost. Responsibly, please. O Lord Brahma, your position within this universe is certainly most auspicious for everyone, especially the cows and brahmanas. Brahminical culture and the protection of cows can be increasingly glorified, and thus all kinds of material happiness, opulence, and good fortune will automatically increase. But unfortunately, if Hiranyakashipu occupies your seat, everything will be lost. This is the demigod speaking to Lord Brahma. Purport. In this verse, the word Dvijagavam Paramestiam indicate the most exalted position of the Brahmanas, Brahminical culture, and the cows. In Vedic culture, the welfare of the cows and the welfare of the Brahmanas are essential. Without a proper arrangement for developing Brahminical culture and protecting cows, all the affairs of administration will go to hell. Being afraid that Hiranyakashipu would occupy the post of Brahma, all the demigods were extremely disturbed. Hiranyakashipu was a well-known demon, and the demigods knew that the demons and Rakshasas were to occupy the supreme post. Brahminical culture and the protection of cows would come to an end. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the original proprietor of everything is Lord Krishna. Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. The Lord therefore knows particularly well how to develop the material condition of the living entities within this material world. In every universe there is one Brahma engaged on behalf of Lord Krishna, as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Teni Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye. The principal creator in each Brahmanda is Lord Brahma, who imparts Vedic knowledge to his disciples and sons. On every planet, the king or supreme controller must be a representative of Brahma. Therefore, if a Rakshasa or demon were situated in Brahma's post, then the entire arrangement of the universe, especially the protection of the Brahminical culture and the cows, would be ruined. All the demigods anticipated this danger, and therefore they went to request Lord Brahma to take immediate steps to thwart Hiranyakashipu's plan. In the beginning of creation, Lord Brahma was attacked by two demons, Madhu and Kaitaba, but Krishna saved them. Therefore, Krishna is addressed as Madhu Kaitaba Hantri. Now again, Hiranyakashipu was trying to replace Brahma. The material world is so situated that even the position of Lord Brahma, not to speak of ordinary living entities, is sometimes in danger. Nonetheless, until the time of Hiranyakashipu, no one had tried to replace Lord Brahma. Hiranyakashipu, however, was such a great demon that he maintained this ambition. The word Buchai means for increasing opulence, and the word Shreyase refers to ultimately returning home back to Godhead. In spiritual advancement, one's material position improves at the same time that the path of liberation becomes clear, and one is freed from material bondage. If one is situated in an opulent position in spiritual advancement, his opulence never decreases. Therefore, such a spiritual benediction is called Bhuti or Vibhuti. Krishna confirms this in Bhagavad Gita, Yad Yad Vibhuti Mat Sattvam, Mamate Jom Sasambhavam. If a devotee advances in spiritual consciousness and thus becomes materially opulent also, his position is a special gift from the Lord. Such opulence is never to be considered material. At the present, especially on this planet Earth, the influence of Lord Brahma has decreased considerably, and the representatives of Hiranyakashipu, the Rakshasas and demons, have taken charge. Therefore, there is no protection of Brahminical culture and cows, which are the basic prerequisites for all kinds of good fortune. This age is very dangerous because society is being managed by demons and Rakshasas. Om Jnanatamrandasya Gananjana Sharakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Chaitanyamano Bhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadanti Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sujivam Advaitam Savadutam Varijana Saita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamishta Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sruta Devi Panamami Adi Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhinevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. As always, I'm seeking your blessings. I'm able to enter into this absorb our consciousness in Bhagavatam and be able to speak something which is pleasing to the deities, to Srila Prabhupada, and is chaste to the purport of Bhagavatam. So this is very, very interesting verse on purport. The demigods have been, they're getting very, very stressed out because of the severity of Hiranyakashipu's austerities. the heat that's emanating from the top of his head, etc., is burning up all the three worlds. So they're getting very, very, very worried. And so they're approaching Lord Brahma. And as normal with the demigods, they are devotees, but they have some material desires as well. And usually they come running to Lord Brahma or Krishna when they've got some particular material distress. But it's very interesting because Lord Brahma, he's the creator of this material universe, the secondary creator. Krishna is the one who's actually providing the source, the original elements, etc. But Brahma is the engineer. And he's been instructed by Krishna. So we can wonder, what is it that Lord Brahma is doing after he's created? You create the universe, he creates it in such a perfect way that it's self-replicating in one sense. People, they can reproduce, and it's going on its own accord. So you have to wonder, what is it Lord Brahma is doing? And I was hearing recently, actually, in the Bhagavatam, it's described that Lord Brahma, he is simply engaged in deity worship. He has but his deity worship is a little bit, in one sense, all deity worship is the same. We see the deities on the altar. The deities are Krishna, but his deity is an expansion of Lord Vishnu, which is, it's difficult to describe because I don't want to say alive, because that's meaning that our deities are not alive. Our deities are also, they're much, much more alive than we are. But his Vishnu deity, it moves. It's like he's directly taking darshan of Lord Vishnu. And so he's engaged 24 hours in worshipping this deity. That's what Lord Brahma is doing. And then if things get very stressed out, then they come and they get him, and then they have to drag him away from that. So it's very interesting that the demigods here, they're referring that Lord Brahma, him having that position is very, very good, because it's glorifying cow protection and Brahminical culture. And it just makes a lot of sense, because what are the two things you need for deity worship? Well, you need Brahmins, and you need cows. You cannot worship deities without ghee, without milk, yogurt. All these items which come from the cow are essential, actually, in deity worship. So this is the creator of the universe, and he's got his priorities right in this sense. He knows that actually by engaging in the worship of Lord Vishnu, everything else falls into place from there. He's watering the tree at the root. It's like we were recently hearing, there was some guests were here a little while ago, and they were saying, they're quoting Burijan Prabhu, saying the perfection of management is simply to study Bhagavatam all day. In one sense, if you're engaged managing day-to-day affairs, then you can't study Bhagavatam all day, but you should actually get to such a level where you're empowering other people to such an extent that they're able to manage everything perfectly, and you're simply engaged in studying Bhagavatam. That should be the goal. And the same with Lord Brahma. This is what he's done. But then nonetheless, the demigods come knocking on his door saying, excuse me, I'm sorry, grandfather, we need your help. So we hear in the verse the word Shreyase is used, referring to the ultimate happiness. There's two types of happiness, Shreyas and Preyas. Preyas refers to a temporary sort of happiness, and Shreyas is ultimate happiness. Prabhupada would give the example that the child just wants to play, which is a temporary, short-term happiness. Right now, I just want to play, whereas the parents say, no, go to school. The child does not want to go to school, but long-term, this is actually better for the child. They get education, and they can... So like this, our life is meant for ultimate happiness, and the ultimate happiness is being engaged in devotional service. The Bhagavad Gita describes that happiness in the mode of goodness may at first taste a bit like poison, but it tastes like nectar in the end. Whereas happiness in the mode of passion tastes like nectar in the beginning, then tastes like poison. And happiness in the mode of ignorance just is He's disgusting the entire way through from start to finish. So we have to go for ultimately what's long term. But if you ask the average person, they do not know what their ultimate happiness is. There's a famous quote, like Kesha Maharaj always quotes it quite a lot, from one Christian saint, Saint Teresa of Avila. And she's saying, more tears have been shed in the world because of prayers that have been answered than because of prayers that have not been answered. More tears have been shed in the world because of prayers that have been answered than of prayers that have not been answered. People think, well, if God only fulfilled my plans, I would be happy. But we realize actually that we are getting all our desires, our material desires, in some way or other fulfilled. The reason we're here is because we've got some desire. It's a mix between desire and karma. But because we don't actually know what it is that we should be desiring, therefore we're suffering so much. We don't know what it is that we should be desiring. We've got this God-shaped hole in our heart, and we're trying to fulfill that with so many other things. You think, well, if I get this prestige, if I get this house, if I win the lottery, whatever it is, I'm going to somehow satisfy that craving there. But ultimately, it cannot be satisfied by anything material. It can only be satisfied by being engaged in rendering devotional service. And this is why, you see, even in the purport here, Prabhupada is quoting, Krishna is the proprietor of everything. Krishna is the one who's completely in control and is the owner of everything. And so he says, the Lord therefore knows particularly well how to develop the material condition of the living entities within this material world. So he knows actually how to give the perfect situation to elevate everybody. And the secret to this is Shastra. Shastra is what gives us this higher vision. So most people, they have some hunger, some desire, some dissatisfaction, but they don't know how it can be fulfilled. They don't know where to actually look, and they're searching around in different ways, trying to get some rasa, some taste from the material world. Whereas Shastra, particularly Srimad Bhagavatam, this is what gives us ultimate knowledge. It's described in the first canto of the Bhagavatam. Idam Bhagavata Nama Purano Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shlokacharitam Chakara Brahma Bhagavan Rishi Nishriyasya Shalokasya Danyam Swashtayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of Krishna. It is God in the form of a book. But not only that, it was compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, who is also an incarnation of God. So both ways around, it's compiled by God, and it also is non-different from God. And it is meant for the ultimate good of all people. The Vedas are described to be like a desire tree. Nigama kalpataro galita palam. The Vedas are a desire tree, and it's giving people what they want. But Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of this desire tree. And this is, a tree will give you anything. A tree is very, very tolerant. If you go towards a tree, you can take the leaves, you can chop it down, you can take the wood, you can pick up the branches, and the tree will not protest. It will give you these things. But if you were to ask the tree, my dear tree, what do you want to give me? And if you walk up the orchard just now, you'll see the apple trees, they're bending down and they're presenting these big ripe apples, this fruit. And that's what the tree wants to offer you. So similarly, there's so much Vedic literature which in many different ways can try and satisfy our material desires, and inadvertently is pointing towards Krishna, very inadvertently. Whereas Srimad Bhagavatam, it's what the Vedas want to offer to us. It's the ripened fruit. It's very, very sweet. And so this is actually, is giving us Nishriyasya Shalokasya, is giving us our ultimate goal, our ultimate well-being. It's telling us ultimately that Krishna is tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But more than that, it's telling us who's the Supreme Personality of Krishna. We hear about Krishna's got different pastimes. These pastimes in Vrindavan, in Mathura, in Dwarka. We understand Krishna in Vrindavan is the sweetest. Like this, much more than any philosophical understanding, we get a very, very personal conception of understanding who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. So yeah, ultimately, this is Krishna's vision. The material world is there. There's one Brahma who's created each material universe, and Krishna has imparted Srimad Bhagavatam into his heart. Srimad Bhagavatam originally spoken in 4 verses, the Chatur Sloki, which was then expanded into these 18,000 verses. And therefore, the person in charge, the person who's in charge of this creation, Krishna knows very important that he understands this philosophy. It's very, very important. The person who's in charge of this creation, he should understand this philosophy. And it's the same within any society. One who's, Prabhupada is very, very, very strict with the selecting members for the GBC, for organizing this institution. He said the people who are the leaders, they need to be exemplary in their understanding of philosophy, their behavior, etc., because they're spiritual leaders. And you're a spiritual leader, then you take on the responsibility for all these other people who are coming taking shelter of that institution. So Lord Brahma is described to be like the grandfather. So we've taken shelter of him, so he should understand this philosophy. Yeah, and then so the other very interesting thing about this purport is there's the 2 words. We've already talked about Shreyas, which is the ultimate good. And the ultimate good is returning back home, back to Godhead. This is what ultimately we're striving for. But the demigods are saying that, Lord Brahma, because you're in charge, it's good for Shreyas, ultimately going back to Godhead, but it's also good for Buchai, which means for increasing opulence. And so Prabhupada is writing in this purport, in spiritual advancement, one's material position improves at the same time that the path of liberation becomes clear. Which is very interesting that by engaging in spiritual realization, our material position improves. And initially, when I was reading this, I felt a little bit contradictory, because many times we hear, for instance, there's famous prayers of Queen Kunti when she's saying, "My dear Lord, you're very easily approached, but only by those who are materially impoverished, those who are materially exhausted." Says those people, Janmaishwarya Shrutashribiya, those who they're too much intoxicated, as it were, by having a nice birth or education or wealth or beauty, these material assets, then it's very difficult for these personalities to approach Krishna. Krishna remains far away. This is what Queen Kunti is saying. And she says that, "My dear Lord, you are the property of the materially impoverished." Those who have nothing, they don't own anything materially, then the Lord becomes their property. And Prabhupada describes it, when we call out the holy name of the Lord, it can free us from more sins than we're capable of committing. But there's a certain quality of that call. The call has to be one of complete dependence. And if one is too materially comfortable, then it likely impede upon their ability to properly call out for the Lord. Jai Shishikunitai Mai Pushashiki. And therefore, it's described in the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada would often quote one verse which he found a lot of realization in, that when Krishna takes special mercy upon one of his devotees, then he removes his material opulence, etc. He can remove family life. He can make impediments to material life simply to clear the path for us to properly engage in spiritual life. And therefore, it seems a little bit strange that we have that presentation on one side, and here it is saying that In spiritual advancement, one's material position improves at the same time that the path of liberation becomes clear. If one is situated in an opulent position in spiritual advancement, his opulence never decreases. But I guess we have to understand that Krishna consciousness is entirely, in spiritual life, everybody gets a personal treatment. You go to like a cheap doctor, and no matter what your problem is, he says, well, there's 2 paracetamol, and get some extra rest. You just say the same solution to everybody. It doesn't matter if you've broken your leg, you've got a headache, you're developing stage 4 cancer, whatever it is, he gives the same solution. Just pick it up. There you go. And often doctors just give antibiotics. It's antibiotics. Doesn't matter what it is. Antibiotics, or you're a bit stressed. Nowadays, that's what they say. Whereas you go to a good doctor, especially like an Ayurvedic doctor, they will maybe spend an hour, 2 hours asking you questions. So, how do you sleep? And what's your diet like? And when do you eat? And how much water are you drinking? And what's your climate like? And how's your work situation? And all these different questions to find out exactly what your situation is, then to give you the treatment, which is completely personalized and specific to you. So 2 people might come to the same Ayurvedic doctor with supposedly the same symptoms. Oh yeah, every time I wake up, I've got a sore headache. And so you might think they should get the same treatment, but the doctor, he asks them all these questions and he sees actually this symptom is from a different cause. So he gives them a very specialized treatment, could be completely opposite. And it's like that with Krishna, but even more so because when we start practicing devotional service, he gets personally involved. And he uses our karma in a way to actually purify us. So for some people, you may see that this person, if they're given more material opulence, it will simply be a distraction. But for another person, he sees they have the vision that this opulence is coming from me. Like Prabhupada quotes, Yad Yad Vibhuti Mat Sattvam. It's a verse from the 10th chapter of the Gita, where Krishna is saying, after he's describing all his opulence, he's describing how, of all the mountains out in the Himalayas, of all the bodies of water out in the ocean, of all the stars out on the moon, how you can see Krishna is the greatest thing of all. He says, all these are but a spark of my splendor. And so this is the vision of the devotee, is that actually we realize everything is coming from Krishna. And if we have this vision, then we don't actually need to distinguish between matter and spirit. When we're initially engaging in spiritual life, we need to make a very clear distinction. Okay, this is spiritual, this is material. I'm going to stay away from that. That's scary, that's material, this will bind me. This is spiritual. But those with a higher vision, they actually see everything is Krishna's energy, and then therefore they engage in yukta vairagyam. They can engage anything in Krishna's service. Yeah, and ultimately, there's one story. Tamal Krishna Goswami, he was talking with one devotee in India, but not an ISKCON devotee, and they were trying to glorify their spiritual master, and they're saying, "Oh, my spiritual master, he's so materially renounced that someone gave him a $50 note as a donation, and he looks at it and he doesn't know what it is. He'd not seen paper money before, and so they're glorifying the spirit. He's completely free from all this material world. He doesn't know what this is." And Tamal Krishna Goswami is saying, "This is." I'm not sure he said it was nonsense, but he said, "Well, my spiritual master, someone could give him £1 million, and by the end of the day, he'd have spent it all in Krishna's service." But actually, this is real renunciation, is to simply know that Krishna is the proprietor of everything. Bhaktaram Yagatapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Krishna is the proprietor of everything. We do not own anything. And therefore, Queen Kunti is saying, "My dear Lord, you're the property of the materially impoverished." Who is the materially impoverished? Well, with the right vision, you realize that everybody is materially impoverished because no one actually owns anything material. Krishna is actually the proprietor. But simply we have to develop this mentality. Ishavasham idam sarvam. Krishna is the proprietor, controller of everything, and we simply accept what's been set aside as our quota. And the Sri Upanishad describes, if we develop this mindset, then we can actually aspire to live basically free from karma, live for a very, very long period of time. Otherwise, we get so entangled. So Queen Kunti is saying, Krishna, you're the property of those who are materially impoverished. And therefore we have to come to this realization that everything we see around us is Yad Yad Vibhuti Mat Sattvam, simply a spark of Krishna's splendor. And therefore we should develop a hankering. Well, I want to see what it's like to see Krishna face to face. If this is but a spark, we think of the thing which is attracting us so much, whether it's, maybe we might get attracted by some person we think is very beautiful. Well, this is but a spark of Krishna's splendor. So how much more beautiful is Krishna? We might get attracted by someone has a very nice situation. They've got, I'm just thinking, growing up, it was always, I grew up in a middle class area, and everybody would buy a house and then they would get an extension. This seemed to be the thing you do. You get a house, and then to make it your own house, then you'd sort of knock out a little wall at the back and you put like a glass bit that looked fancy. I think it's like a way to sort of put your stamp on, this is mine. And then everybody's looking around at everybody else's house going, oh, look at their extension. When we understand the philosophy, we understand everything is coming from Krishna, therefore much, much more attractive. And the reason why we spend so long reading these books, talking about Krishna, engaging Krishna Katha, is simply to become homesick. Simply to become homesick for where we belong. We belong with Krishna. But until we're actually aware of that, Shreyas, our ultimate good, then we cannot properly aspire for it. We have to chant with the mood that, as Prabhupada was saying, the sincere feeling. So Prabhupada was saying in that purport, for the Krishna is a property of the materially impoverished, that when we are materially exhausted, we can chant with sincere feeling. So we have to understand that ultimately, I can never be satisfied here. And then the sincere feeling can come about. Also, Krishna, in using our karma to purify us, he may also be seeing, we're also being tested with our responsibility. Like, what do we have to look after? Well, some people, like, you have a body, and some people we can become a little bit, personally speaking, a little bit neglectful of the body. You have some sort of, I'm distinguishing between matter and spirit. The body is material, whereas I am spiritual. So then let me forget about the body. But this is actually, it's a sign of attachment. If we're too attached, then we can become, it's almost a childish mentality. Whereas the higher mentality is to understand, okay, this is Krishna's energy, this is a material energy, but it can be used in Krishna's service. And this is why, for instance, the spiritual master, the body of the spiritual master is worshipable. And the paraphernalia of the spiritual master is also worshipable. Because the spiritual master is fully engaged this supposedly material energy 100% in Krishna's service. And therefore, this is like the iron being put into the fire. It becomes red hot. And so this is the stage all of us should get to, really. Prabhupada wanted us all to become gurus. And this means it's like, you see, for instance, maybe some sannyasi comes by and people give him a donation. They give him some dakshin. And the spiritual master or the advanced devotee, their life is modeled in such a way that they do not exist simply for service, out with or service to Krishna. For perhaps a more neophyte devotee, there is, okay, these certain times of the day, maybe on a Sunday I'm going to go to the temple, and okay, I'm going to chant maybe this part of the day and I'm going to offer this food. So these certain times I'm living in service to Krishna, and these other times are service to me. Or also the pastime of Bali Maharaj, it's like, well, Lord Vamanadev comes to him and he says, Bali Maharaj says, what can I give to you? He says, I'm being very generous. What can I give to you? And he gets chastised for this mentality, because it's not so much of what can I give to Krishna. It's not so much of how much of my day do I give to Krishna. It's about developing the realization that actually we simply exist as eternal servants of Krishna. And therefore, it's simply, how can I mold everything simply to give everything? This is the goal. The goal of Krishna consciousness is to fully surrender, is to fully realize that we're part and parcel of Krishna. And we can only be satisfied in this relationship when we're giving everything. So similar to this with the advanced devotee, someone gives them some donation, they will simply use that. It doesn't even come into their mind to use that for their own sense gratification. That thought doesn't come there. They simply engage anything, any opportunity, any material facility will be engaged in Krishna's service. So we also have to come to this platform. So maybe I'll stop here if there's any comments or questions, corrections.
Kashyapa does occupy the post of Lord Brahma. So when he occupies the post, what does Lord Brahma do while Hiranyakashipu was in power? Which kind of leads into the next question: is does Lord Brahma have any influence on the universe when Hiranyakashipu was in power?
So Lord Brahma gives benedictions, but does he give the post to Lord Brahma?
As far as I know, he occupied it because the demigods were afraid, the constellations were afraid to go into inauspicious situations. So he had the universe in his full grip. He was always in the season of spring. Nobody got sick or old. All the cow protection and Brahminical activities and Vedic sacrifices were stopped. At least temporarily, he seemed to have been relieved of his influence.
Yeah, I guess what Prabhupada is writing in the purport here about in modern day, Lord Hiranyakashipu was the first great demon to maintain the ambition of taking the place of Lord Brahma. And then he says, at the present day, especially on this planet Earth, the influence of Lord Brahma has decreased considerably, and the representatives of Hiranyakashipu, Rakshasas and demons, have taken charge.
Yeah. I was wondering how Lord Brahma has any influence in Kali Yuga, and I was thinking, well, he does come down as Haridas Thakur and show us how to perform the Yuga Dharma.
Yeah, I guess he is this system of the four yugas. I mean, he's the one who's created that for.
The yugas don't affect the heavenly planets. It's only Kali Yuga and Bhumi Loka. And then the other question was, is a guru only bona fide when he's Raganuga? Because you were saying how the guru has to follow, he follows all these rules. Sounds very Vaidhi Bhakti, whereas there's a certain point where his service becomes spontaneous. And then he may slacken on his observance of rules and regulations. Because like Srila Prabhupada, one time he was in the kitchen and he went like that with the bowl and then licked his finger and they said, Srila Prabhupada, that's not offered. And Prabhupada said, that's okay. Me and Krishna are good friends. So,
what do you think?
Well, Shiva Rama said recently that a guru is when he knows his swarup, and he can help you understand your swarup. So you may have a guru in progress. He may be Kanishta or Majjhima, and he's coming to the stage of Majjhima. And if he's following an Uttama Adhikari, then as long as he follows that, then he's a via medium.
Raganuga Bhakti is still within the stage of sadhana bhakti. Raganuga is still within this realm of sadhana bhakti.
Vaidhi is Vaikuntha, and Raganuga is Goloka. So we have to, and that's at the stage of Ruchi.
He is sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, prema bhakti. So I hear different things. It seems like Raganuga Bhakti is actually, the first is Vaidhi, the Raganuga, and then you got Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti, which seem higher still.
And generally in class we don't speak so much intimately about Radharani or Bhava Bhakti. It's when we're giving a class, we have to look at whoever the lowest denomination is in the class, and the class has to be just for them. It shouldn't go beyond, otherwise it's the 9th offense to the holy name, is to try and enlighten people about things which are very confidential, you know. So we have to be careful sometimes not to share too confidential. Sometimes you can have like a senior sangha where devotees who are at least Majjhima will get together, and then we can talk about that. But if there's Kanishtas present, then you have to be very careful, because Kanishta will just take things cheaply, or have the tendency to anyway.
Any other questions or comments? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Nitai Gaur Premanand
Hari Bo, His Grace Pancha Prabhu ki.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavanda ki